fighting the enemy was dangerous. But for some pilots, simply sitting inside their own aircraft was even more terrifying. There were fighter jets in aviation history so dangerous, so unreliable, that pilots didn't just fear combat, they feared takeoff itself. These weren't just flawed machines. They were known by a chilling nickname, flying coffins. Today, we're not just talking about engineering mistakes or failed designs. We're diving into the dark stories buried deep inside military archives, stories of aircraft that cost lives before they ever faced the enemy. These are the jets that pilots refused to fly, because survival wasn't about skill, it was about luck. So buckle up, because this journey into aviation history is going to be dangerous. F-104 Starfighter, the Widowmaker. At first glance, the F-104 Starfighter looked futuristic, sleek, sharp, and incredibly fast. Its long, pencil-like body and extremely small wings made it stand out from every other aircraft of its time. But what made it look advanced also made it deadly. The aircraft's wings were so short that pilots had almost no margin for error. Landing required near-perfect precision. Even the smallest mistake could turn into a fatal crash. When West Germany purchased large numbers of F-104 Starfighters during the Cold War, excitement quickly turned into fear. German pilots began calling the aircraft the Flying Steak, a nickname that reflected how unforgiving it was. But the most terrifying flaw wasn't visible from the outside. Early versions of the F-104 were equipped with downward-firing ejection seats. In theory, this design was meant to prevent pilots from colliding with the aircraft's tail during ejection, but in reality, it created a horrifying problem. If a pilot needed to eject while flying at low altitude, which is when emergencies usually happen, the seat would fire downward, sending the pilot straight into the ground. Instead of saving lives, the ejection system sometimes guaranteed death. The toll was devastating. In West Germany alone, 292 F-104 Starfighters crashed, and 116 pilots lost their lives. Imagine losing an entire generation of trained pilots, not to enemy fire, but to the aircraft they trusted to protect them. Over time, the F-104 earned a chilling nickname that history would never forget: the Widowmaker. Vought F-7U Cutlass, the Gutless Cutlass. If the F-104 looked futuristic, the Vought F-7U Cutlass looked like something from another world. It had no tail, swept-back wings, and a strange, almost alien appearance. At the time, it represented bold innovation, a radical attempt to push aviation technology forward. But innovation without reliability is a recipe for disaster. The Cutlass suffered from a major problem. Its engines were simply too weak. Even small amounts of moisture, like rainwater, could cause the engines to fail. For pilots, this meant that bad weather wasn't just inconvenient, it was potentially fatal. Pilots quickly gave the aircraft a nickname: the Gutless Cutlass. Not because it lacked courage, but because it lacked power. But the real horror came during landings. The Cutlass had an unusually long nose landing gear, designed to give the aircraft a steep takeoff angle. But this design introduced a fatal weakness. During hard landings, which happened often, the nose gear could collapse. When it did, the sudden impact transferred force directly into the cockpit. Pilots sometimes suffered severe spinal injuries, and in many cases, they didn't survive. Statistics revealed just how dangerous the aircraft truly was. Nearly 25% of all F-7U Cutlass aircraft were destroyed in accidents. That number wasn't just alarming, it was unacceptable. Eventually, pilots pushed back. Some refused to fly the aircraft at all. The Navy faced mounting pressure, and the Cutlass was gradually removed from service. It became a symbol of ambition gone wrong, proof that experimental design without reliability can cost lives. Brewster F-2A Buffalo, the flying beer barrel at the start of World War II. The United States believed the Brewster F-2A Buffalo would be one of its strongest weapons. On paper, it looked promising. It was heavily armed, durable, and easy to manufacture. But in real combat, the truth was brutal. The Buffalo was slow, heavy, and poorly maneuverable. Against modern enemy fighters, it struggled to keep up, let alone survive. Pilots quickly noticed its bulky shape and sluggish performance. They began calling it the Flying Beer Barrel, a nickname that sounded humorous but reflected a deadly reality. The aircraft's worst moment came during one of the most critical battles of World War II. The Battle of Midway. When American Buffalo fighters encountered Japanese Zero fighters, the results were catastrophic. Out of 21 Buffalo aircraft, 13 were shot down in just 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's all it took for more than half the formation to disappear from the sky. Surviving pilots later described the experience in blunt terms. One pilot reportedly said, "This aircraft made the enemy's job easier." Soon after, the Buffalo was removed from frontline combat operations. Confidence in the aircraft had collapsed, and pilots refused to trust their lives to it again. It became a painful lesson in wartime reality, that technology which looks powerful on paper can fail catastrophically in battle. De Havilland Sea Vixen, the lopsided nightmare. Some aircraft were dangerous, not because of speed, but because of design. The de Havilland Sea Vixen was one of the strangest-looking jets ever built. Its cockpit arrangement was highly unusual. The pilot sat on one side of the aircraft, while the observer, responsible for navigation and radar, sat deep inside the fuselage, in a dark compartment that many described as a coal hole. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was terrifying. If the aircraft caught fire, the observer had almost no reliable escape route. Survival depended entirely on timing and luck. But cockpit layout wasn't the only problem. The Sea Vixen's engines were known for reliability issues. Mechanical failures were common, and accidents happened more frequently than expected. The loss numbers told a grim story. Out of 145 Sea Vixen aircraft, 55 were lost in accidents. That wasn't combat damage, that was operational loss. For many pilots and crew members, flying the Sea Vixen felt less like performing a mission and more like testing fate. It earned a reputation as a machine that demanded courage, but didn't always reward it. MiG-23. The Soviet deception during the Cold War. The Soviet Union developed the MiG-23 to compete with Western aircraft like the F-4 Phantom. On paper, the MiG-23 was impressive. It featured variable sweep wings, designed to adjust during flight for better speed and maneuverability. But in practice, this complexity created serious problems. Pilots often describe flying the MiG-23 as riding a wild, unpredictable horse. The aircraft's handling was difficult, especially during takeoff and landing. Small mistakes could quickly spiral into uncontrollable situations. One of the most troubling issues involved the wing mechanism itself. The movable wings could occasionally jam, locking into the wrong position at the worst possible moment. In combat situations, this could be fatal. During conflicts in the Middle East, particularly in Arab-Israeli wars, MiG-23 pilots from countries like Syria and Iraq began reporting repeated failures. Some openly complained to Soviet advisors, demanding safer alternatives. For them, the aircraft didn't feel like a weapon of strength. It felt like a gamble. These aircraft were more than machines. They were lessons, written in metal, fire, and sacrifice. Every crash, every failure, every lost pilot forced engineers to rethink their designs. Over time, these painful mistakes led to safer systems, better technology, and stricter safety standards. Because aviation history teaches one brutal truth: a machine can be replaced. A pilot cannot. Today's advanced aircraft, from stealth fighters to modern multi-role jets, exist because of the lessons learned from these deadly failures. And while modern technology has made flying safer than ever before, the ghosts of these flying coffins remain part of aviation history. If you think modern jets like the F-35 or Su-57 still have hidden flaws, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for taking 10 minutes to explore the darker side of aviation history. Stay safe and see you in the next mission.